Okay, Mike, take a look at your swing here today. A couple things that we'll see. I'm going to do a pretty full analysis here for you, but there's a couple things about your swing that I know are kind of built into it, and at this point they're in your golfing DNA, so to speak, and they're not going to change drastically, but they can be modified enough, slightly, to be more consistent. Okay, so we're looking for two things: the root cause of fat shots and hooks. Occasional blocks are, it's nothing, but you still have great distance. You play the right tees, of course, and I think you're in those mid sixes. You're probably playing the right tees. And we have to deal with that, but I think you're going to be fine. But I want to take a close look at why you're hitting the ball at times fat and why you snipe hook it at times, okay? You've got a pretty strong left hand. Now, at one time, I put your left thumb a little longer on the club, and I made your right hand stay around your thumb. But you do have a strong left hand. I got Rory over here, who's got a fairly neutral tour grip, and you can see his left hand's turn a little bit further to the left. So we have to deal with that, okay? Now, as you take it back, the one thing that happens for you is that you have a very flat shoulder turn. The club gets stuck inside sometimes. So you see that the left shoulder is still riding pretty high. When you take it back here, you see the left shoulder going down. Now that's not saying that you're, I've played with a lot of really good players that have a flat shoulder turn. It's how is it going to affect the club? Well, one of the things that happens for you is when you get there, we have a little bit of a slide move. So your whole upper body is sliding a little bit past the ball and the club is cast early. So you can see right where you are right now, you're pretty fully released. The left arm and the golf club here, get that out of there. The left arm and the golf club are pretty well released. When you get the club in line with the left arm or close to it here, you're pretty well released. And you're at the left, you're at the hip high, the pocket there. So now this, of course you're not going to do this, but what I'm saying is that I just want to give you an image of it so that you can see it. Most of the top players, they get to about pocket high there, the club's parallel to the ground. Another way of looking at that, and this is what I'm saying, hold. You see how narrow the space is between Rory's, the shaft of his club and his shoulder and his forearm there? See how narrow that stays all the way down? Because he's holding this angle right here. He's holding this angle. It's what they call lag or delaying the club head. That's not in your swing. That you have a widening effect up there, and it gets released pretty early. Now what that can do is hook the ball, and definitely if we don't get you moving through it enough, it will land behind the ball. It will bottom out early. Okay, so I want you to try to just a little bit more hold on the angle if you can. Okay, and the other thing I gave you was watch Rory's left leg here. It slams like straight shut. He's pushing off the ground. The left leg is shut, and he's got all that much more room. Your left leg stays bent through the impact. So if you've got an early release, a strong grip, and not enough of that left hip getting out of the road, they all add up to two things, fat and hook. So those are the things that I gave you to work on today. Now down line, now mind you, I've got my handheld camera here, so this is not spot on, but it gives us a good enough look at it. Down line, your posture's good. Again, the club face pointed right at the belt buckle, arms hanging below the shoulders, knees over the shoelaces. Good. I mean, your balance is good. You don't have to change one thing about your posture right there. Now, as you go back, there's the flat shoulder turn, and the club gets stuck inside. It gets behind you very quickly because this turns pretty flat. So, you know, is that a big factor for you? Well, it may be. It may be why the club gets inside. If your shoulders were a little steeper, could you set it up a little better? Perhaps. But I still think you could set the club up. See, I'm big on what the body's doing to the club. The body in and of itself is not moving the club, right? So the arms are going to move the club. So what I'm trying to say here is that let me get you one from down the line here. Who do I got? Ernie. There's the steeper shoulders and the club being set up earlier. See, your club gets laid off and flat. If your left, it's true that if your shoulders worked a little steeper, it'd probably be a little easier to set the club up. And if you did set it up a little bit earlier, that would have an effect on two things: the timing of the hit. The more you set the wrist up, the later you're going to get to the ball. The flatter you get back, if it gets stuck behind you, you can release it early and hit too far behind the ball. So there's the pitch of the shoulders that we're kind of looking for there. But the most important thing is that this is right here. Little long, little steep. Now this is where some of your hangback comes from, because the transition gets a little steep. So you went from flat inside to a little steep here, and now you've got to kind of back the body up and hang back to get this back on plane. So if you watch this, now you've got the shaft back in a pretty good position, right? But you couldn't really just turn through it from there. You had to back up a little bit, and that's where the hangback habit comes from a little bit of a steep transition. So it goes flat, and then it starts down a little steeper, and then you got to hang back and flip it a little bit. The other thing you're going to notice is that you do get the club face open because of that steepness in your shaft. So I'll show you what I mean. Pulling the club, having the club too vertical, get the face like that, and you get his face a little bit more like this as he comes down a little further, like this. So this is going to require you to flip it when that club gets a little bit open like that. But the bottom line here is, if we can keep working that leg straight and keep you getting the left hip out of the road, I think all this other stuff is going to be fine. Two things that we can do differently enough to make you as consistent as we can, which is better turn through with the lower body, which is straighten the left leg, and delaying the angle a little bit longer, holding the angle a little bit longer. Feel like you're pulling it down, not just down, but down plane, okay? See, if you notice, you got the club face open here, right? But as you come down and it hits the ball, now the club face is looking over here a little bit, right? So he's got the club face closed, but when he hits the ball, he's got the club face looking right at it. So that's from holding that angle and clearing the hips a little bit, whereas yours gets tossed. So if you hit that, the worst shots that you hit, think about them. We all learn more from those than we do any other shots. The real heavy shot, a couple inches behind it, or a snipe hook, it's because you're letting it go early, flipping the club head, and not getting that left side cleared. So I'd really like you to get, and I also think if you look at this closer, Mike, watch. This stuff here, this move here, and I grew up in the reverse C era of golf. I learned to play with the Nicklaus type of swing when we were taught to stay behind it and have that reverse C. But if you ask me, that right there is a lot more strain on your knee than if you were to straighten that leg and turn right around it. You know what I'm saying? So that you would really, it's just so much easier to clear if you can get that leg straightened, and it'll drive you up. You'll be pushing off the ground like Rory does too. So hold the angle, keep the body turning, and we're going to try to get rid of this. We're going to try to get rid of this look as much as possible. See, there's a lot of extra release here because that face got open, but I'd like to get rid of this for you and get your body much more over the get the upper body much more over the lower body. Yeah, so there he is again, the young maestro. This is real young Rory. Look at that hair. But when he comes through the ball, see how straight it is? I mean, that's upper body stacked straight over it. It's interesting that you watch the Hogan, Nelson, Snead era, like the 40s, Palmer even a little bit in the 50s, you see that look. You see them finishing straight up like that. Then came Nicklaus and his famous reverse C era, and everybody, started teaching the square to square method, and we had all this hangback problems. But I mean, look how, I would say, I don't mean this negatively, look how ramrod stiff straight is, like a steel bar his leg. That really is easy to post around it, and it's much less strain on your leg like that. So that's it, bud. Keep the angle as long as you can. Clear the left side by straightening the leg, and let me know how you're doing. All right, good to see you again, Mike.